I appreciate it.
So let's talk. I mean, I know that when we originally were scheduled this, we weren't in this middle of the Israel-Palestine scenario that we're in now. And I have been having sort of even more so of a like come to Jesus moment about my feelings about this. And it's really hard. I grew up very Jewish, North Miami Beach. My grandparents were all very post-Holocaust fear-based. They were so fearful. They were so supportive of Israel. Like we were just Zionists by birth. And I really second guess a lot more than I have lately. And so it's hard for me as a Jewish person because I get called a self-loathing Jew. But I'm just feeling like I don't think there needs to be nation states based on religion, and certainly not ones that cause the, dispossession and trauma and violence and genocide to another group of people. So, I mean, how do you, because obviously you're aware of what's going on, how do you reconcile all this about Israel?
I appreciated that when I first got on, Peter was talking about how there's a big distinction between the people of Israel and Netanyahu. South Africa was apartheid, and then it wasn't, and there's still a South Africa. The United States has done some absolutely terrible things, but I still believe the United States has a right to exist. And the things that you just said about your reasons why you don't think it should exist based on religion, well, are you going to get rid of you realize that's what Iran is, and you realize Saudi Arabia, and unless we're calling for the end of those, and if anybody were to say that they shouldn't exist because they're based on religion, we would be called Islamophobes for saying that. So I think that we all need to really step back a little, even the way you threw out the word genocide. I'll go with apartheid. I will. I think it's time. And I think as an American Jew, it's time. I'll go with some aspects of ethnic cleansing. And ethno-state, but only ethno-state because of the ethno-nationalism that Netanyahu has brought in, and with that 2019 bill. I'm not going to just, parrot a Hamas talking point and use the word genocide. I'm sorry. We've done terrible, terrible things in Iraq. We've done terrible things, but I just think we have to be extremely careful. And I do think it's time for us to own. Just as the United States was founded, it couldn't have been founded without slavery. It is time for us to own terrible atrocities, the displacement of 750,000 people. But there was a democratic ideal, and there have been times in the history of Israel which are not like they are now. But the status quo cannot continue. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And I agree with everything else that you guys were saying. I agree with the fact that Netanyahu planned this. The Judaizing of East Jerusalem is unacceptable. The settlements are unacceptable. The occupation is unacceptable. The apartheid conditions for Arabs inside Israel is unacceptable. And this needs to be, the United States has said for years that the settlements are illegal. We need to go beyond that. We need to condemn the settlements. So those changes are absolutely necessary. But if you go as far as some of the things that you said, Jen, then my question would be to you, so what are you saying? Because I hear a lot of my friends on the left who talk about how, based on all those talking points that we just mentioned, two-state solution, according to them, is no longer an option. I do not believe it. Do I believe it's on life support? Yes. Do I believe it's dead? Actually, no. Then they talk about a one-state solution. But when people on the left talk about a one-state solution, it reminds me of Paul Wolfowitz and the neocons talking about what Iraq was going to be like. Oh, and then there's just going to be this democracy, and it's going to be so nice, and they're going to be equal rights. And I'm like, you people are in fantasy land. Who's going to administer this? Because how do you think this is going to work, this one state solution that you think is going to be, everybody's going to be equal? Because Hamas is going to come in, and Hezbollah is going to come in, and Iran is going to come in, and Iran's not going to go down, Israel's not going to go down without fighting. So we're talking there. We want to be very careful, I would think, and really think through what we're talking about, what we want to happen next. So what I would want to happen next is owning all the things, such as apartheid, such as the strong condemnation. It's time for the United States to change. There is no doubt about it. But jumping to all of the most negative things that we could possibly say about Israel, it's not just because I'm a Jew that I won't go there. It's because I'm a human being. And there's, everybody talks about how Michael Brooks said this was simple. I understand the part that is simple in terms of systemic oppression, but there are still parts that are very complicated. And the left should not become known for this simplistic conversation that we see so often on the right.
No, it's very complicated. And I don't have any sort of idea as to how it would even go about really being fixed. And that's what's so daunting about it, because the way that Israel has proceeded in the past however many years with the settlements and sort of this checkerboard approach to displacement of Palestinian communities, it's at this point, they've created a situation where the only way that you could fix that is now you've got to have all the people that are settlers leave and move out, or you've got to create new whole road infrastructures. I mean, they've really blocked them in such a way that it's really made anything going forward in any unification very difficult. Different highways, the checkpoints, it's very blatant.
But it must be done. That's the thing.
Yes.
There is no alternative at this point. It must be a multi-year process. Right now, we give the Israelis $3.8 billion a year. We give the Palestinians something like 300 million.
Right.
All of this must be changed. We must give money, and equally, we give money that is not to be used for military purposes. And everything that you're saying, when you have hundreds of thousands of settlers in these illegal settlements, and the world must come together, and the United States must lead this. We must have a political leadership in the United States that says enough. Enough. I don't want to hear Anthony Blinken or Joe Biden say that they stand for human rights and stand for that goal of what's going on in Israel. It will be difficult. It will take years because you've got hundreds of thousands of people in those settlements, but that is exactly what we have to work out, because the alternative is a level of violence that really could be the setting for World War III.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.